Okay, we will bring it back and we will move to item 8B. Mr. City Manager, are you there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is a resolution approving the issuance of revenue bonds for our PEP housing project. Our Daniel Clarkta or Emily Cantu from our Housing Services Department will make the presentation.
Yes, good evening. This is Emily Cantu, the Housing Services Director, and we're happy to be bringing this item forward to you this evening for consideration. Dan Huerta with our department is going to walk you through the staff report and a quick PowerPoint, and then we're available to answer any questions you have. I'll pass it to you, Dan, please.
Thank you, Emily. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council. Tonight, Council is being asked to hold a public hearing and consider approval of the issuance of state multifamily housing revenue bonds by California Municipal Finance Authority to finance the construction of Pony Express Senior Apartments. Next slide, please. Thank you. The history of the proposed development includes City Council approval of a disposition development and loan agreement in March of 2017 with PEP Housing, Inc. It's a nonprofit affordable housing developer. The DDLA provides that PEP will construct and operate 60 affordable housing apartments for the seniors on city-owned land located at 220 Aegean Way. The location map and summary of the DDLA approved in 2018 is included in the agenda packet as attachments. PEP later partnered with an additional nonprofit, EAH, to form Pony Express Senior Apartments LP to apply for project financing. Pony Express then obtained all required development approvals and entitlements with council approval on November 13th, 2018, and since then have been pursuing available state funding sources to finance the project. Pony Express has now secured all sources of funds to ensure the development is constructed, including the final source. On December 21st, 2020, the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee approved the project for funding of tax-exempt bond proceeds. And in order to receive the bond funds, Pony Express LP has requested that the California Municipal Finance Authority, CMFA, serve as issuer of the bonds. Over 320 municipalities, including the city of Vacaville, are members of CMFA. Because the development is located in Vacaville, the City Council must conduct a public hearing to obtain public comment on use of tax-exempt bonds for financing the Pony Express Senior Apartments. Next slide, please. So the maximum amount of the bond issuance is set at $18 million. Repayment of the bonds would be the sole responsibility of the owner, Pony Express Senior Apartments LP, and would be paid from rental income. If the bond issuance by CMFA is approved this evening, Pony Express would obtain building permits and plan to begin construction of the 60 senior apartments around May of this year. There are no funds needed for the request to hold the public hearing. And again, bond repayment is the responsibility of Pony Express to be paid from rental income. The development of the 60-unit senior complex meets the city's strategic plan goal number 3 to protect Vacaville quality of life. Next slide, please. The staff is recommending that council hold the public hearing to obtain public comment and approve issuance of the bonds. Along with staff, Jim Wallen and Mary Stomp, the executive director of PEP Housing, is representing the owner, Pony Express Senior Apartments LP, and Travis Cooper with CMFA is also here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Silva.
Great, thank you, Daniel. I'm really excited about this. Couldn't, support this more enthusiastically, just for the fact that, again, we're putting something for that will be accessible for our seniors, particularly those, that are struggling financially, which is by and large a lot of seniors, particularly as, a lot of costs continue to rise, the struggles that, most people have trying to adjust to that. So just with that said, are there any safeguards to ensure that maybe there's some type of priority for our local seniors? And then number two, I just want to clarify that this is a rental. I know it's listed there. This is rental, so no options for ownership.
Good evening, Councilmember Silva. Thank you for your support and for your question. It is a rental community, so these are 60 apartments that will be rented at below market rent amount. And as far as the preference for local seniors,
Emily, you're getting feedback. Somebody else in the room has something on.
I am alone. There we go. Is that better, Mayor?
That's a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So I was thanking you for your support, and it is a rental community, 60 apartments that will be rented at below market rent over a period of a good long period of time and available for our seniors. And I do need to defer on the question if there is a preference for Vacaville residents. Can Pep please respond to that question quickly? Sorry. Hearing they may not be available right at this moment, so I apologize, but I will definitely get the answer to that question to you as soon as possible.
I appreciate that, Emily. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one other hand up. Vice Mayor Sullivan, please.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a meeting, I don't know, maybe 2 meetings back, where a project that we approved previously as the senior-focused housing project was sort of changed later on in the process based on the property owner and the project's request. Is there any possibility for this particular project? I know it's a very different project. Could the senior criteria be removed at a later date after we approve this action this evening is my first question. And then my second question is, we did receive a fairly lengthy and detailed email that I'm having a hard time, honestly, just kind of getting through and figuring out, with 5 questions about inconsistent representations made by the applicant on a variety of things related to the bonds. How has the applicant demonstrated their ability to pay? The staff report has some construction details that are a little murky. And then if the applicant doesn't spend all the $18 million in bond proceeds, what happens to the unused bonds? Emily, you and the city manager were on that email. I know this was, it was like right before the meeting, so it's hard, 2:09 p.m. today. First question, can the senior housing denotion be removed after the fact today? And then the second question is, have you had a chance to look at that email correspondence we received? Michelle, yourself, Aaron, and the council received it looks like. And do you have any answers or any thoughts on the 5 questions?
Yes, thank you. This is Emily Cantu, the Housing Services Director. The documents between the city and the Pony Express apartments do call out that the apartments will be for seniors. So it is restricted to seniors. Those documents are a 55-year term period. So I would not anticipate the senior status to change during that period of time. As far as the email with the questions, I did get a chance to look at it, and we were able to put together some responses for the sender, and we were able to get that out just barely before this evening's meeting. So I think that we were able to clarify the information that was being asked about, and why there may appear to be discrepancies in the staff report to the state and what is in the DDLA. So they are still consistent, and the project is still in compliance with the city's terms in our agreement that we entered into in March of 2017. The project is showing that they're able to pay back the bonds. It is the project's responsibility to pay back the bonds with their rental income. And that is a short-term loan that will be paid off after construction with the tax credit financing. So the investors will be putting in money to pay those bonds off. So it is a short-term loan. So I don't see any issue with the bonds being able to be paid off by the project. They also have a history with their other, at least a dozen projects where they have paid off the bond. So I hope that answers your question. And I'm happy to elaborate more on the responses to the email now or, offline. Certainly with the sender, I'd love to spend some time speaking with them to help answer the question.
Two quick direct questions that I have based on the email itself. So there is a statement that the individual one-bedroom units are going to cost $499,902 to build. So it's $500K per unit. I mean, for a 60-unit conjoined apartment complex, that does seem really high to me. And the citizen is stating that projected costs on similar projects were $100,000 to $250,000 in Daly City, where construction costs, because it's the Bay Area, usually are more expensive. How do we sort of validate that there is no inflation of the costs, or that is the actual kind of financing? And then the second follow-up question to that is sort of a question that I touched on earlier. If the 18 million in bond proceeds are not spent, what happens to the unused bond proceeds? So how do we double check their $499,000 estimated cost per unit? And then if they don't spend the 18 million, A, do we check to see if they spent it appropriately? And B, if they don't spend it, what happens to it?
Thank you. Yes, in regard to the cost per unit, in comparing other projects that received funding from the state, the bond financing from the state, this project is certainly comparable, and actually the per unit cost is lower. They approved projects for unit costs of $550,000 as high as $745,000 in Hayward, actually. So that is a similar comparable cost with other affordable housing developments. On the bond proceeds, there would not be any unused bonds. There will not be any because they're not sold and they're not issued. So there wouldn't be any like leftover bond proceeds. They only issue exactly the amount that the project needs.
So I hear that. That makes sense to me. I think, again, 30 million for 60 units does seem a little costly, and we call this affordable housing. I mean, market rate right now for a 4 to 5 bedroom brand new single standalone home is $500K. So I am a little, I mean, is a little perplexing, and I'm wondering, I don't know enough to be dangerous here, but at the end of the day, this cost is going to be passed on, I'm guessing, to seniors that are paying these rents. That just seems really expensive to me. And I know that the city is not incurring this debt, we're co-signing for it. But I guess I would like to see some of the comps and research we've done and maybe kind of similar. I'm struggling with that sticker price for me, especially because a new mansion in Vacaville is like $600,000. And I just want to make sure we're not sticking it to the seniors that are going to live there. The other question I have is we've had a variety of bonds throughout the years and loans, and maybe I'm saying the wrong vernacular, but eventually those get sort of written off or kind of absolved. And a lot of these happen through redevelopment or the successor agency. Can that happen with this project? Could the borrower take out, the 30 million they need and then sell all this stuff and make a ton of money and then we write it off later? Or does every dollar of this have to be paid back by the developer through the process?
Yeah, thank you for the additional questions. I appreciate it. Oh my gosh, I lost the first question. The costs are not directly sent back to the seniors through their rent. So just wanted you to keep in mind that the rents are restricted to be affordable to seniors who are earning are very low, considered very low income, are 50% of our area median income. So the rents are, in part, the Vacaville Housing Authority is providing vouchers, so that helps pay for and again, it's restricted, so it does pencil out, if you will, that the developer will be able to pay for their debt service and keep the rents restricted.
I guess the concern I have there, and I don't mean to cut you off, but the concern I have there is the taxpayers are paying for those vouchers. So why wouldn't we just put these seniors in a $400,000 condo or a $300,000 condo or a $250,000 condo? I mean, again, we're building a 1-bedroom apartment for $500,000 that even though the seniors won't pay that rental rate back, the vouchers will, and our limited housing funds will, and the taxpayers ultimately will. So I don't mean to kind of go this deep on this question here, but I am sort of perplexed, and it feels like someone is making a ton of money on the backs of taxpayers. I'm just really stuck on that $500,000 sticker price for a 1-bedroom apartment. So, I mean, ultimately, what you're saying, though, is the seniors will pay whatever their discounted rental rate is, but the city or Section 8 or other voucher tax-funded payers would pay the difference, correct?
The vouchers are used, just like throughout the city, they will be used at this project to subsidize the rent. Yes, and that's kind of a common way to assist with keeping rents low for low-income persons. And again, the vouchers are used throughout the city for that same purpose.
Okay, thank you for your responses. I appreciate it. If you don't mind CCing me on the responses back to the constituent, I would love to hear that.
Absolutely.
Okay, I see no other council member comments. I will open it up to the floor.
Alicia Minion, I'll open your mic.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm actually the person who sent the email regarding this particular 18 million request to issue bonds. I just want to make a general statement first. The city provided a preferential loan, and this is city land. Land is the most valuable asset that we have. I think, I'm absolutely in agreement. We need affordable housing. But what I want to say is, I think we need to achieve that goal of providing affordable housing, not just for the sake of it, not just providing it at any cost. I think we need to invest in affordable housing opportunities with partners who can construct it and deliver this good at a reasonable cost. In looking at the staff report, I didn't realize that this particular applicant was seeking an allocation from the state of tax exempt bonds. So that's what made me go look at the staff report for the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee. And in that report, I saw some inconsistencies. Number one, it says that the income will be, that the renters will make 50% or less of the area median income, but the staff report said 60%. I didn't read this DDLA that Emily is talking about, but to me, there was a representation made to the California Debt Limit Allocation Committee. That's an arm of the Treasury. So I don't know if that inconsistency would have changed the allocation committee's decision to allocate, 16.2 million approximately in bonds. Number two, I was concerned that the issuer, which is the California Municipal Finance Authority, is actually sharing their fees with the city. And also they're sharing a portion of their fees to charities that will be, quote, designated by the city. And that wasn't disclosed in the staff report. So there appears to be that the city actually has a financial interest in the sale of this bond or bonds. And number three, I was there was some sticker shock on the construction cost details that was provided to the state debt limit allocation committee. The, cost, the cost per square foot to construct these units, it seems to even exceed the cost per square foot to construct in San Francisco, the most expensive city in the nation in terms of construction costs. So, this isn't a world that, that I actually have.
I need to wrap up.
Sure. This isn't a world that I have expertise, but if you're going to deliver affordable housing at a price where you could actually buy 60 homes at the median price of a home in
I have to cut you
Vacaville.
off, Alicia. I'm sorry. Thank you. Can we have the next caller?
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
So I think, besides the obvious sticker shock for a one bedroom, I think that's insane. I'm concerned if there's going to be restrictions. It says seniors, but, are we talking mentally ill seniors, those experience PTSD, those experience some form of anxieties? Are there going to be limitations to the quote unquote seniors that can get there? And then on top of that, I'm really concerned about the location. It's high traffic right there. The sort of noise is going to be insane. It's seeming like it's going to be a high-rise 60-unit facility because there's really not enough land space-wise. And then access, what's North Bay is probably a mile or so away via, traffic. So is CVS, any other local shopping, convenience stores. I know seniors don't live on ARCO food. So a lot of that is my concern. Will there be renewable energy being used? We're going into a whole different time of living and utilizing different sustainable resources. Are these questions that came up, or was someone just said, oh, let's build something that's affordable? And again, go back to some of my previous statements. We're just making check marks and some check boxes, but really not addressing the actual issues at hand. Again, the price tag that we're talking about for a one bedroom is absolutely ridiculous. And as a council, I think you guys should take some time before you go ahead and make this move. All right.
Next caller, please.
Ravante Robinson, I'll open your mic.
Yeah, so I just wanted to second everything that the first two callers said. Not only because what they said was 100% right. It's also because I want to make Ron Roulette stay up longer tonight.
Fantastic. Next caller, please.
Mary Stomp, I'll open your mic.
Good evening. I'm Mary Stomp, Executive Director of PEP Housing. I just wanted to answer a couple of the questions that came up. First of all, PEP Housing has won the Governor's Award for Sustainability 2 years. And so that's something that's very important when we build housing. But we're here to approve revenue bonds, not to approve the project. The project's been completely approved at this point. The question came up about whether Vacaville residents would get preference over other residents. According to fair housing laws, we have to offer the housing to all seniors, although we will be advertising in Vacaville so that residents in Vacaville have the opportunity to apply for the housing. We serve all seniors, whether they have mobility or perhaps mental health issues, and we provide services to them so that they can live effectively in independent living. Regarding the cost per unit, we agree it's a lot per unit of $499. But if you look at the recent CIDLAC projects that were submitted, there's projects there that cost, senior projects there that cost up to $749,000 per unit for a senior unit. There's a great report that's out it's the Turner Center for Housing Innovation at UC Berkeley. And unfortunately, the cost of production of housing has risen 32.8% between 2008 and 2019. All of those years I've been executive director at PEP Housing and have seen those costs rise. Those are costs that are completely beyond our control, primarily in the construction side of the projects and in the impact fees that were charged for a project. For example, this project alone, we pay $1.3 million in impact fees to the local jurisdiction. So that's, that contributes to the high cost of the property. But in terms of overall, the average cost in the last CIDLAC round was $550,000 for a 1-bedroom unit for senior housing. Ours is significantly below that, and that includes all of the new construction senior projects, excluding rural housing. So I just wanted to address those questions that were raised, and am happy to answer any other questions for you.
Thank you very much. Next caller.
Wendy Brecken, I'll open your mic.
Hi, this is Wendy Brecken. I was just concerned about the self-dealing, which Alicia Minion brought up. The fact that, if we go with this entity that issues the bond, then the city gets 25%, or I guess they're splitting a 25% fee or something that's a continuing fee. And so I just was wondering if that, has been looked at legally by, I don't know, a security bond lawyer, just how that pans out. Thank you.
Did we want to answer that question?
Yes, this is Emily Cantu, and the question was about a fee that could come to the city to offset some of the costs for holding this public hearing. It is a policy of the bond issuer, CMFA. The city can decline to receive that fee if they so choose, but there's no other arrangement between the city and CMFA. So it's a policy of the bond issuer, and we can accept the fee or decline the fee.
All right, thank you. Next caller.
Bradley Larson, I'll open your mic.
Bradley, are you there, sir?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just had a question regarding how the city goes about choosing land plots for projects such as this, and why we haven't been trying to work on housing for houseless individuals, such as the ones who are frequently leaving Vacaville to go to Fairfield. And we can see that recently in Fairfield, a houseless woman died because she didn't have access to resources. So also, you had a tiny house program that just was not satisfactory whatsoever in the past. I haven't heard anything about that in recent time. I would like to put that back on the agenda somehow and actually get a good system going where we don't have potential for abuse in the last days.
Everything on point here. I'm going to go ahead and hang that call up. I don't see any other calls. So we'll close public comment and we'll bring it back to the council. I see Vice Mayor Sullivan.
I am doing a little Googling here while we're talking, and I again want to apologize to Emily. I didn't mean to call you out or sticker shock you. Apparently it's $750,000 to build a 1 unit in San Francisco. In Oakland, it's about $500,000. In Sacramento, it's somewhere around $600,000. This is absolutely insane to me, and it feels like we're just gouging taxpayers, but it does appear to be somewhat within the norm of California. And this, this is a fairly recent news article from a fairly reputable source. So Emily, I apologize for sort of calling you out. Honestly, that was shocking. because this is senior housing, we absolutely 100% need it more than most other housing types. I'm going to make a motion to approve the recommendation as stated. But I really hope staff can help us with this because California is crazy. And I still do sort of struggle to believe that it costs the same to build a housing unit in Vacaville as it does Oakland. So I do wonder if there's some meat on the bone we can chomp off later, but because this is senior housing and we need it so badly, I'm going to make the motion. But this is insane, and I just feel like we're gouging taxpayers. But apparently, it's the norm in California, and you know it is what it is.
I have a motion. Do I have a second from the council?
Silva, second. Can I make one more comment?
Sure.
Thanks, Mayor. So just to clarify, this is just to allow them to apply for this bond. So I just want to communicate that, and so this allows them to apply for the bond, and we'll see what happens out of that. And then, so is that maybe I should get some confirmation? Is that right, City Manager?
That is correct.
Okay. So again, a second, ready to vote.
Great, thank you. We'll go to roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
The audio skipped. Did you say Vice Mayor? Sorry.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. We'll move to 8C, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. This next item is a resolution dealing with a application for a public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverage sales at 2051 Nut Tree Road. Saul Uribe is making the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Major Roulette and members of the Vacaville City Council. So the item in front of you tonight, it's the Nut Tree Food Mart project. This project is a city determination of public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverage sales. If we can move to the next slide, please. Again, the request in front of you tonight is for a city determination of public convenience or necessity for the sale of alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption only. The application also includes a minor modification request for the minor tenant improvement changes that would be required for this type of project. We can go to the next slide. To provide you a little bit of a project summary, this project includes the request for the City Council to approve a Type 21 liquor license. This is a license that would allow this location to sell distilled spirits and beer and wine products. The project site is located in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. This particular project would occupy a currently vacant space that is approximately 2,000 square feet in size. The proposed site plan includes the parking spaces that are required for this particular business and access via the existing driveway on Nut Tree Road. The proposed hours of operations for this project are Monday through Sunday, opening at 6 a.m. and closing at 2 a.m. We can go to the next slide, please. This slide provides an overview of the area. The project site, it's highlighted with the orange boundary. This particular project site, it's in a building that currently has two tenant spaces. Suite A is occupied by a dental office. Suite B is currently vacant. The site is also surrounded by existing commercial office with a professional office overlay. And there's existing nearby residential zoning districts on Nut Tree Road and then to the west of the project site. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this site plan illustrates the project site with the proposed liquor store being highlighted in with the gray lines. Suite A, which is the dental office, it's not highlighted. So this particular space, Suite B, is the one that would be occupied by this particular tenant. We can go to the next slide, please. So to go over a little bit of why a PCN determination for public convenience or necessity is required for this particular application. ABC requires applicants to obtain approval of a PCN if the license it's in either of this criteria. First criteria, it's in a crime reporting district that has 20% greater a number of reported crimes as determined from all crime reporting districts in the city. This particular location, it's in a reporting district that has 476 calls for service versus the 204 calls for service in the city. The other criteria, whether it's in a census tract, where the ratio of on-sale liquor licenses to population exceeds the county-wide average, or where the ratio of sale liquor licenses to population exceeds the county-wide average. This criteria is met. This particular census tract currently has one active license, and the county-wide average would allow for 3 licenses to operate on this census tract. If we can go to the next slide, please. So in determining public convenience or necessity for a particular project site, the city is required to analyze the criteria that is listed in the municipal code. An analysis of the criteria is provided on the staff report. And to summarize the criteria, I'll provide a few of the highlights. So for criteria number 1, we're asked to analyze if the proposed location would impact sensitive surrounding land uses such as residences or schools. This particular location is near existing residential land uses. Those existing uses are within 300 feet of this particular project site. The site is also surrounded by medical offices. Although the code doesn't identify offices as a sensitive surrounding land use, staff believes that it's a land use that should be considered as part of this criteria. This criteria requires staff to analyze impacts, and because we need to analyze impacts, we asked our city police department for their opinion on whether or not a particular new liquor store would impact the surrounded residences or medical offices. And for PD, this particular types of land uses tend to create additional calls for service. So we feel like the additional calls for service or crime activity in the site could potentially impact those surrounding land uses, especially after hours, since this particular use would operate until 2 a.m. Second criteria asks whether or not this particular land use would enhance recreational or entertainment opportunities in the area. The proposed land use is a liquor store. Staff doesn't consider liquor stores to be a use that would create or enhance recreational and or entertainment opportunities. Also, staff believes that given that there's 3 viable options in the same intersection with a nearby AM/PM, a nearby 7-Eleven, and a nearby Rayleigh store, that there are viable options for residents to obtain alcoholic beverages for recreation. The third criteria has to do with whether or not the proposed land use would enhance the economic viability of the area. There are 3 existing locations that offer these types of products within close proximity of the proposed location. And though we recognize that opening a new business could provide additional tax money to the city, we feel that those products are already available in the area, and there's no evidence to confirm that there's going to be an increase of those types of sales. If we can go to the next slide, please. Fourth criteria requires the city to analyze if there's an excessive number of liquor licenses within the vicinity. So there are 3 existing licenses in the project site vicinity. This is different than ABC's criteria on whether or not a PCN is required, because ABC looks at census tracts. Again, the census tract where this particular site is located does not have an over-concentration for ABC requirements, but our code requires us to analyze the vicinity, and we feel that there are 3 existing licenses in the vicinity, and approving a 4th license would be excessive. The 4th criteria requires the city to analyze whether or not there's a history of police or crime-related problems in the area. Again, this particular reporting district for ABC's data has 476 calls for service, which exceeds the 120% of the average number of calls for service in the city, which is 204. The next criteria requires the city to analyze whether or not the applicant has agreed to comply with conditions of approval imposed to the project. At this point in time, staff has not issued any conditions of approval because we are recommending denial of the project. The last criteria is whether or not this particular type of use proposed in conjunction with the sale of alcoholic beverages will adversely impact surrounding properties. We feel that a liquor store at this location could affect the surrounding properties, given the likely increase of calls for service and crime activity in the area. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so in conclusion, the Community Development Department has determined that there's no evidence to support the approval of the PCN, and staff recommends that the PCN application be denied because the project fails to meet the criteria for approval. If we can go to the next slide. And with that, I conclude my presentation, asking council that a simple motion they adopt the subject resolution, denying the application pursue determination of public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverage sales, and the minor modification for the Nut Tree Food Mart at 2501 Nut Tree Road, Suite B. We'll be happy to answer any questions. The applicant and the applicant's representative, it's also in the Zoom call, and they're also happy to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
What's the name of the applicant's representative?
Michael.
Michael? Okay. I see no questions right now from the council. I'm going to open it up to the public. I do see Michael's hand up. I believe that's probably the representative. So, Michael, do you want to say something?
Yes. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of council. In reviewing the staff's report, I trust that you received our response to the staff report, as well as the additional information that we've provided. Again, we're looking at this very differently from city staff's perspective. The crux of the argument that the city staff, city determination, is that there may be calls for service, and the requirements are the criteria are for your consideration, but not findings. But the basis of their denial is that speculation or conjecture, right? They're guessing that this may cause additional calls for service. I would point out to the council that in reviewing the calls for service, which I'm not a local to Vacaville, and certainly sitting here for the last few hours and listening to the myriad of comments being made, seems like there has been some issues with police calls within your city and reading the news. And I would ask this council to look particularly to the documents and evidence that we provided, that of the calls for service, and those things can be anything from a cat in a tree to a car alarm going off. But of those 407 calls for service in that particular census tract, the 25 actual crimes were to the level that were actually crimes, right? There wasn't 407 crimes in that area. There was 407 calls for service, 25 actual crimes, of which 17 of those are in one apartment building. And they have no correlation or relation to any kind of alcohol use that we can determine, or that the staff has provided any empirical data or evidence to suggest that the mere inclusion of a viable, bright business in the spot, in the space that has been vacant for now 9 years, folks, that would increase crime. There's just no data to support that except for their assumptions. And I would ask you, from the perspective of my client, who is the only viable tenant that has been secured in the Herculean efforts by one of your most well-respected real estate agents, who I believe is on this call, if he's still on the call, he's going to make the investment into this otherwise vacant building. The property does house a dental office. The dental office is also the property owner. The property owner is in support, obviously, of this application to this unique location of 2,000 square feet. Again, we would ask that this particular applicant is not condemned on conjecture and assumptions, but given the opportunity to bring a viable business to the city of Vacaville and be appropriately conditioned so that operations are consistent with the community standards, as well as this longstanding teeth of conditions that are applied by the department, as well as the California Business and Profession Code, which regulates this business particularly. The other locations which staff addresses within the staff report are very different and do not provide the same services that my client will provide. Namely, when you're talking about a beer and wine license at 7-Eleven, obviously that's very easy to distinguish, but getting your alcoholic beverages at a gas station or at a supermarket are very different experiences in terms of convenience and necessity. If anyone has kids like I do, going to the grocery store is not a quick thing to do. You deal with traffic, you deal with cars, you deal with masses of people, and a larger store to go and look for your items, and generally don't statistically shows that you don't go there to buy one or two items if those items are more readily available to you at a smaller location. Those are where you go to buy your week's worth of groceries, and if you want to make a quick stop, generally that's not where you're stopping. In terms of a gas station, it's very peculiar that very recently in 2015 that the city was able to either make a determination of public convenience and necessity. We're not sure yet because we don't know. Nobody knows how they upgraded their license despite our requests. And unfortunately, having got the staff report on Friday, we're still waiting for that. But when you go to the ARCO AM/PM, you're generally there to buy gasoline. And as an ancillary component, this might you may pick up an item or two. But again, as our response indicates, AM/PM is not known for their high-end distilled spirits, wine, and craft beers, which is what our client will be focusing on at that location. And we believe it's completely distinguishable from from the AM/PM, from the rallies up the street, and from a 7-Eleven that doesn't carry the same product line that we're talking about. In terms of the census tract analysis, obviously the census tract is not over concentrated. There are other licenses within the perimeter, but if you look at the census tracts, and unfortunately I don't have the ability to share my screen with you, but if you were to look at the census tract, you'll see that these two census tracts, the two census tracts kind of align in a commercial residential area where the primary function of that intersection and the split between those two census tracts is in fact commercial. It's not uncommon for there to be a concentration of those licenses in that area because that's where the commercial corridor of this particular neighborhood is, and that's where people come to get their retail needs. So in terms of over-concentration, it's another avenue for another option for customers to buy products that are not otherwise available at an AM/PM or at route easily.
All right.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the information. Can we go to the callers, please?
Marion, I'll open your mic.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I had done mute. I agree with the city planners. Absolutely not. This does not seem to be a good location for a liquor store. And I beg to differ with what the gentleman just said about it not being an increase in crime. I took, the last 20 seconds to Google that and found a multitude of articles that say liquor stores increase crime in the neighborhood. So, I don't know. I can't tell you that the data is from great sources because I didn't have a lot of time to analyze it, but I sure found a lot of articles in the 20 or 30 seconds that I looked. And all of them said there is an increase in crime of varying percentages. Also, it seems to me from the map, and I can't be sure, but is that not located about 150, 200 feet from an elementary school? That's a horrible place to put a liquor store. And given the fact that there are 3 other locations right in the area where you can purchase liquor, and the fact that apparently there are a higher number of service calls in that area. And, again, yeah, they're not all for crime, but guess what? When you Google, do liquor stores increase crime? Those are for violent crimes. So I vote no. I don't think that this should be approved.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
James Shea, I'll open your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, that last lady kind of stole everything I was going to say, but to the caller Michael that called in, he said it's a viable business. How do we know that for sure? That would be my first question, and then the next couple questions would kind of piggyback on what the last caller just said. There's a school right there, Cambridge Elementary. I think it's Cambridge Elementary is right there, and you've got the 3 other places that sell alcohol, wine, and hard liquor. But also there would be kind of a traffic issue in my view, because there's only, looking at the map, it's kind of hard, but it looks like there's only one entrance there, and it's on Nut Tree, which is basically right on the corner. So you're hooking a right off of Alamo, or you're coming straight off of, you're coming straight off of Nut Tree, and you got to hook a quick right to get in there. Unless there was another driveway put in, it seems like it would cause a possible traffic issue or more calls for service because of accidents or fender benders or what have you. So that might be something else to look at also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Al Alpert, I will open your mic.
Hal, you have to clear your mic.
Muted. Okay, hi.
There you are. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Hal Alpert. I'm the real estate broker that was spoken about, and I thank you kindly, Mike, for your words. I'm the broker that put the lease together for this property. The lease was signed in September of 2020. The application was submitted. It's been 5 months. I appreciate it finally coming to the city council agenda. I would address a couple of things. First of all, traffic, I believe that's a non-starter as an argument, because we're going to put eventually somebody else is going to go in there. They could have twice as many cars. When you look at convenience stores and liquor stores, they don't generate any more traffic than if we had a real estate office there with 30 agents in it. The combination of alcohol and gasoline has always been a trouble for the city planning department when it came time to approving liquor licenses. Years ago, 4 years, I spent 4 years on the planning commission. It was always a question, well, should we allow this AM, PM, or this 7-Eleven to sell gas and alcohol at the same time? And this isn't going to be the case here. This is a safe location where there won't be gasoline and alcohol mixed. If anybody had taken the time to go to Sassoon, where the applicant has his other store, it is a first-class operation. It is not the convenience store where the hot dogs are rolling around and it's just not a clean environment. This is the kind of environment you would want to go to before you go home from work to pick up that really nice bottle of wine to celebrate some occasion with your family. I think it's a viable location in my experience. I believe it could be successful. You got to figure that there's going to be 8 to 10 more jobs in that part of the city. And I heard a very excellent presentation by Brooke Fox earlier today about how some jobs have been lost in the downtown area. This is an opportunity to pick up some jobs somewhere else in the city. I thank you for the time and speaking to you, and I wish you good luck in your decision making. Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
So I like to be the voice of reason. I like to think outside the box. I like to use my own mind. And I often say things that normal folks won't say because most folks are probably too nervous, or I don't know. Anyway, let's be honest here. I don't think it's the liquor store in question. Well, I shouldn't say that. I don't think it's the business in question. I think it's the word and terminology being associated with it. So when they say liquor store, let's be honest. It's not a liquor store, all right? If they're selling craft beers and spirits, when you use the word spirit, that's not, I don't think Mad Dog 2020. I don't think Wild Turkey. Craft beer, you're not talking about malt liquor, your Mickey's, Old English. Most of the consumers, and again, I talk real because real things happen in the real world. Probably these consumers aren't your liquor drinkers, to say it in a nice way. So you're probably not going to have people loitering outside with a beverage in a brown paper bag. These people are probably going to drive up in their Tesla or their Prius, get their goods and be on their way. I don't really see a problem with it other than it being by a school, but there's already multiple stores selling alcohol by the school, so I don't really see how one more is going to really do anything. So I have concerns with people say, oh no, let's not do that. It's going to look bad in the area. I don't hear nobody complaining about Bevmo right next to PetSmart and Nordstrom's Rack, whatever that place is. So I don't know. I just think we just need to be careful on the terminology that we use going forward. And solution, give the man his business, put a like a 6-month provision on there. If he has any problems, we revisit it, we remove the permit. Let's be real. Let's be grown people and just come up with solutions. Is just saying no, he can't do it because he's close to a school. All right, thank you.
Thank you. The next caller, please.
Danielle Shea, I'll open your mic. Good evening. So I think that my problem isn't as much the consideration of crime or anything like that. Really, I don't think that this is a good idea. From the reference of somebody who my husband and I are entering the market to buy a home, and we've looked in a lot of different neighborhoods, and Southtown has had quite a few homes for sale. And when I'm looking at a community, what I'm looking for, and what I think the families in that area are probably looking for, is, you know, options and diversity of business. And this just seems like oversaturation in that area of similar things. And you can call it a different thing if you want to, but really they're all selling alcohol, and it's a convenience store. It doesn't sound as high end as some people are trying to insinuate, because they're going to be open till 2 a.m. And I'm generally not going to the store after I get off of work at 2 a.m. I think it's just a lot of the same thing. And I know that the city council, of course, doesn't have any say over what businesses are attracted to that area. However, you know, I think that people in that side of town, there's not a lot there. There's a McDonald's on the opposite corner and 2 gas stations, and now we want to put a liquor store on the 4th corner. The people in that community deserve, you know, a lot of different good things, like coffee shops, community meeting places, just a diversity of business, and not just a bunch more of the same thing. We know what happens in areas that just are, you know, oversaturated with gas stations and liquor stores and mattress stores. It's not very economically viable, and it's not as vibrant as the people who have invested interests in this project are making it out to be. So I urge the council to consider not approving this, because I don't think there's any benefit. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Devontae Robinson, I'll open your mic.
So I listened to the guy's business proposal, and honestly, it's actually pretty good. I think that, you know, as long as you got some Hennessy on discount, I'll be at your spot every weekend. And, you know, that would be fantastic.
Okay, next caller, please.
Mayor, the next caller I see is Michael.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment, and we'll bring it back to the city council. And the first hand I see is Councilmember Stockton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I want to disclose that I had a conversation with the applicant, and I visited his other location over in Sassoon to see it and learn more about it. It was a very clean store, very nice, that sells a variety of goods and higher end liquor. Listen, like I'm having a hard time. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have a building that's been empty for a significant amount of time. And more importantly, we have an individual with a dream to open a business in our community and contribute sales tax to our town. You know, I understand that we all wish for diversities of businesses and would love to see more coffee shops and stuff like that. But, you know, we can't make those businesses set up shop there. And so here we have an individual with his American dream that wants to set up a liquor store, and the fact that there are 3 more in that area only means that hopefully they all compete with each other and give everybody the best price on the stuff that you want to buy. But I just, you know, I see this as an opportunity for somebody to fill a location that has been vacant for a significant amount of time, for somebody that wants to bring business and jobs. You know, we all like to say that we're pro-business. I understand that there's always concerns anytime you're opening up anything that serves alcohol. There's liability in everything. I do think that the applicant is very committed and serious about keeping his place upscale, providing quality service and beverages to our community. And the reality is, as far as crime goes, I mean, there's 3 right there. I mean, anybody can walk 50 feet across the street and go buy liquor at one of these places. You know, as much as we'd like to see something else there, this gentleman wants to set up his business. Really have a hard time telling him no. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I'm interested to hear what everybody else has to say. So I'll give the floor to the next person.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. I really do appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit of the project owner, and I'm sure he has a great facility in Sassoon, especially during COVID. Opening a business during COVID is fantastic. I also really appreciate Mr. Ayaz and Mr. Alpert's comments and them staying so late. You know, our meetings have been going till 9, 10, 11 o'clock, so I appreciate you hanging in there. But with that being said, I'd like to support staff's motion. So I'm making a motion to support staff's recommendation as stated. And I would also like to encourage staff and the applicant to work together to identify another location. This location is just not right. There's other places in town that are zoned for commercial and we need to build in, and there could be other viable options, but I am motioning to support staff's motion or recommendation as stated.
Okay, I'll entertain the motion. Everyone still wants to speak, so I'll entertain the motion. I'll ask for a second, but then we'll keep it on the question. Is there a second for that recommendation?
I will second that, Wiley.
So with that, we'll continue with the council members. We'll go with Council Member Silva.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I'll keep it quick. Actually, I agree with both council members, Stockton and Sullivan's points, but I know they're contrasting. But the point is that there's more ways than to make a living than selling liquor. I live in a neighborhood where there's more liquor license than what's currently written, as my understanding. And I see the blight that adds to the community as we continue to concentrate that, and the fact that we're in a pandemic where there's allegedly increased issues of depression and other issues. I don't feel comfortable being a part of that process. I would encourage, and this is where I have essentially two questions, and I guess I'll direct it to the city manager or city staff. So number one, has the city or is the city willing to work with the owner on alternative solutions to use that space?
Thanks for your question. So at this point in time, we've only analyzed a convenience store with a liquor license. We haven't really analyzed a different project, but any type of retail and general merchandise store at that location is a permitted use. In fact, the liquor store is a permitted use, but we have to get that PCN approved. If the applicant wants to open up a store there without a liquor license, that's a permitted use, and he only needs to obtain a City of Vacaville business license and his building permits. But again, at this point in time, we've only been talking about opening up a store with a liquor license at the location.
So just to clarify, if the owner or any other interested party wanted to collaborate with the city, is there someone they can go to talk that out to see how that space can still be utilized?
Correct, but everything we've heard from the applicant is that they would need the liquor license.
Okay.
So
yeah. Sorry.
Councilmember Silva, this is Acting Community Development Director Fred Buderi, and I'll just wanted to confirm what Mr. Uribe said. So the staff are available to talk to the property owner or any potential lessee of the space about other uses that are allowed by the zoning. And there's a fairly wide range of uses that are allowed under that current zoning. Thank you.
And just kind of off of that point, I'm just asking in general, if there was for a proposed, I'm curious for the city's position on this hypothetical situation. So if they wanted to sell food, but also offer alcoholic beverages, I'm curious to know if that would have been an issue.
If they wanted to open up a restaurant that offered beer or other types of alcoholic beverages for on-site consumption, that's a different type of ABC license. I believe that's like a type 41 or 47, which don't require the PCN. ABC is authorized to approve those licenses if it's a restaurant. But then if it's for off-site consumption where you can actually buy beverages and take them home, that's a type 20 or a type 21. And that's where the PCN would be required. Just like in this particular case, it's a type 21 for retail, and that's where the PCN is required.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Wiley.
I do appreciate hearing all the information about this project, and I do totally understand the benefits of filling the vacated spot. You know, that does have quite a bit of open space available. So it sounds like a plan to have a viable business in there. And I also understand the interest in having more people employed. However, since we are in districts and this is within my district, I have had calls from constituents with concerns about opening an additional establishment that sells liquor on that corner, since there are 3 other ones right there. And I have taught at Cambridge Elementary School, and I know that people, walk up to 7-Eleven and get their icy. And so I just think it's not a good idea to be so close to the school. So those are some of the reasons why I seconded the motion, and I would ask that we not allow that use in that building at that location. But I do agree that, there could be a store open somewhere else in town, but just not right at that location.
Councilmember Stockton. Did I lose you?
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to find the mute button again. I have another question, and I'm hearing what everybody's saying. I just have a hard time telling people what they can do with their property and where people can choose to put their businesses. And I understand it's not my district. It's important. But one of the questions that was brought up was as far as adding to crime. And, I have a question maybe for the acting chief regarding business and professions code. Do we have a program where we work with local businesses that sell alcohol to identify habitual, drunkards or intoxicated people that are frequently being arrested for being drunken and disorderly in public, to provide them with information so that they don't violate that business and professions code by selling alcohol to those people? I was just curious if we have something like that in place, just because I think there's alternate ways to make sure that we keep our community safe and that these alcohol sales aren't, going to people that suffer from addiction or habitual drunkenness.
I can answer that. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Anytime there's an ABC license issued, pretty much regardless of the type, there is a training that does take place in reference to just what you were saying. The identification of somebody that's, intoxicated, had too much, shouldn't be served, whether it's on-site or off-site. But, we're always willing, if somebody, wanted to get more information on proper identification of somebody that might be, addicted to alcohol or an alcoholic or in some way, needing assistance. Yeah, we can definitely work with the business owners to help identify those things. We don't have anything formal. There's no formal program that we have established. But anytime that there's a need or a business reaches out, then we're more than happy to help them, with identifying that.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Kind of touching back to what Mr. Russell brought up, is this really a black and white, a deny or approve, or is there a provisional license just to see how it plays out and what the business actually looks like? It's really hard to judge when you just read the paper, and it could look completely different in real life. Yeah, with that is like, if it truly is like a craft beer and high-end liquor store, for a better term, is the demographics that shop at those aren't typically the people looking to get drunk or are your typical drunkards, because they're not going to spend $20 on a 4-pack of beer. They're going to go across the street to the gas station and buy the box of the cheapest beer or liquor that they can find. So maybe to the city manager, city attorney, is there a provisional license options just to see how this actually would play out as a business, and it may end up being a good business? I do understand the concerns of it being relatively close to a elementary school, but if there's already 3 other ones right there, obviously it wasn't that big of an issue.
So, council member, this is Aaron, city manager, and it's been a while since I've had to deal with this particular subject, so the planning department can correct me if I'm wrong, but the fact is that based on the type of liquor sales that are being requested tonight of the city council, it does trigger, that is considered a license 21, that does trigger the need for the PCN. So there's really no flexibility in that regard, because it's based on what is being requested for on-site sale or off-site consumption, and based on what is being proposed at that business is triggering the ABC's applicable permit requirements. That permit requirement then triggers the need for the PCN determination, and based on the criteria of our code and the ABC's code, it does trigger it, and that's why we're here tonight evaluating the PCN request. If the applicant was to make a different type of request for a different permit, perhaps that would get us into an area where we wouldn't have to be subjected to the PCN requirement. But at this time, that's all we have in front of us tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so I never want to stop businesses from coming in. You know, I don't think that our decision is going to stop someone from drinking or not drinking because we put a liquor store in. I don't think it's government's role to help control the people from drinking or not drinking. You know, the gentleman wants to put in, and I do agree it's going to be a different type of store, definitely different than a gas station liquor store, and definitely different than a grocery store. We have a few in town. One was mentioned tonight, Bevmo, which is a very nice store. You don't see crime around that store. And they do have the higher end type of liquor. Then we have a wine and spirits on the other side of town, and it seems to be a good store. We don't have a lot of problems out at the front of that store. And I think this is just another store that would be a retail store that would make it easier for people not having to stand in long Rayleigh's lines and not have to go into a gas station to purchase their beverage, especially if the beverage is not even available at those places. So I'm going to be in favor of letting them come in. I will not be voting with a motion. And I'm always supportive of business. I always will be supportive of business. And I think that we should be putting this, or at least letting them come in and test the market. Maybe they survive, maybe they don't. But that's where I stand, and I will be voting against the motion. But we do have a motion, and we do have a second, so we'll take a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stockton.
I just want to make sure that I'm voting the right way. I'm voting to allow I want the person to be able to have their business. So is that a no vote?
No. So, Mr. Mayor, if we can just restate the motion in the second for.
Yeah, I'll have the vice mayor state it because it was his motion.
My motion is to support the staff recommendation as stated, but also instruct them to work with the owner, the applicant, and their real estate agent to identify possible alternate locations that do meet criteria.
I vote no. Stockton.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
No.
Councilmember Wiley, Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
No. The motion passes 4-3.
No, sir.
Motion.
Three,
No,
Say no.
It's 3-3.
3-3.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't count right. I was trying to keep it up. Yeah, we don't have 7 people on there. So with 3-3, that means it's thrown out, and we can entertain another motion.
So this is Stockton.
My understanding.
Oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Stockton.
oh no, go ahead. I'd rather hear what you have to say before I make a motion. I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I just think procedurally, if it's split, that's also perceived as, well, actually, sorry, I apologize. The mayor already stated it. Sorry.
Right. I'll entertain another motion. I don't know if it's just going to be split again. We'll go ahead with another motion if you want to do another motion. It could be just a split vote again.
As a reminder, Mayor, before the motion is made, that if there is a desire to recommend approval, the council should indicate that they would direct staff to bring back findings for approval at a future meeting so that we can bring that back.
I have an alternate motion.
And who is speaking?
This is Sullivan.
Sullivan, go ahead.
I move that we move this item until after the District 2 special election is completed to avoid the tiebreaker. This is going to go all night.
I appreciate that. My question would be, and I guess I would ask the representative if the representative's still available. I see a hand up. So yeah, Michael.
Yes.
And I don't know if anybody was even, it sounds like 3 of us want the business to go ahead and open and 3 of us don't. Maybe I should direct it maybe back to my council, but if we I guess motion to amend anything like the hours of operation or anything, would we get any of the council to move? And if so, would the representative want us to do anything, or do you want this to be exactly the way it's stated?
Well, I mean, thank you very much. I would ask, just for clarity purposes from council, if in fact a 3-3 is a stalemate, or if the code determines the decision first. If not, we would certainly be available or open to ideas of appropriate conditions, because again, the purpose of our request is to bring a business to Vacaville. And so if we need to prove ourselves, we would certainly consider conditions of approval that may satisfy or at least address some of the issues that some of the members, some of the council members have. Including but not limited to the hours of operation. I think that the one thing that you could do is implement conditions. I don't think that is prohibited. And so if there was suggestions for conditions that we could discuss, I would certainly be open to that, as with my client. And I certainly, having waited 5 months for something that sort of by code occurred much quicker. And if you've looked at our documents, kind of the delays that were associated with this particular application, we really would like finality tonight. But of course, we would like to, more than anything, to be able to operate the business in Vacaville. So that being said, if council could advise as to what happens in a 3-3 split, and in some jurisdictions, I'm I don't know in Vacaville, that's a win for us. But if it's not, then yes.
It is not a win for you, but I am going to ask our city manager or city attorney, can we postpone it, basically like Vice Mayor Sullivan mentioned, have them, and I'm not saying let's wait till May, but have them maybe come up with a different plan, maybe talk to some of the people that are against the project, see if they can come up with a different plan that may be feasible for everyone, or at least get.
And Mr. Mayor, oh, go ahead.
I was just waiting for city manager or city attorney.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll wait.
So I'll jump in here and respond, Mayor. So just to clarify, in accordance with the municipal code related to the PCN, it specifically states that unless a affirmative decision is reached, then there is no determination that there is a need for the PCN. Therefore, as a result, the PCN fails. So, so having said that, if there is consensus from the majority of the council to entertain the possibility of modified self-imposed conditions, if you will, to reach a possible opportunity for support of the proposal, then I would seek council direction tonight to give us that direction to work with the applicant on possible conditions that would alleviate those with concerns, so that we can bring it back before we have our 7th council member, which, just as a reminder for the record, is that while the election is in on May 4th, that position will not be seated until June 8th.
Right, and I want to work with this business as fast as we can. And if the council, I would be willing to entertain a motion. I do see a few more hands up, but if somebody wants to entertain the motion of trying to help this business out and bring it back.
I've got a motion out there, Mayor. I did make a motion already that we have to kill, I think.
Oh, I apologize. Oh, yeah, you did have a motion. Your motion was again, sir?
My motion was to move this item until after the results of the special election in District 2.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'm sorry, but our client is paying rent on this property, which I'm sure Hal can attest to, and I'm receiving text from my client who's on this call. We would be willing to modify the hours of operation right now, limiting our hours to midnight. So, and any other conditions that you or the Honorable Council think would be appropriate. We certainly would also be willing to agree to a condition that is permissible, as far as I know, in terms of a review period for calls for service and other issues at the property. And should those calls for service or issues at the property reach a level that is objectionable to either the council or the police department, that we be brought before the city council again, with the opportunity, with the possibility of losing what you have granted to us. So we would be willing to do those two things, if that helps.
Okay. Mrs. City Attorney, could we, and I know Nolan still has his motion out there, but could we pose any of that tonight? Could we come up with stipulations tonight that maybe get us to a resolution?
So again, we cannot, I would discourage trying to solve the problem tonight, because we don't have finance in a condition where we could present that to council. What I would ask the council is that if there is a majority consensus of the council to work with the applicant to address their concerns about the proposed use through the use of self-imposed conditions, that you would give us that direction tonight. What areas of concern that you are willing to listen to, because if we go work with the applicant without that direction, then we're guessing. And I don't want to waste the applicant's time on what we think is the solution, only to come back and say, no, that wasn't it. So if we can get that consensus tonight and the direction, then I think it's appropriate to continue the item and then allow our planning department staff to work with the applicant and on some possible solutions that we can bring back to the council. If that
Okay. Thank you. And Vice Mayor, I don't want to be disrespectful. I just think you're going to end up with another 3-3 tie. Let's Councilmember Roberts state whatever he would like to state.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's kind of another motion. I don't want to cut Vice Mayor Sullivan off. But I'd just like to make a motion to
If you're going to make a motion, I'm sorry, Roberts. I thought you just wanted to make a statement. If you want to make a motion, let's let someone second. If it dies for a lack of second, or if it dies on the roll call vote, then I'll call it back to your motion. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I have Vice Mayor Sullivan wants to hold this off until the May election and wait till June before we can vote on this again. Do I have a second for that motion? Hearing none, I'm going to say that dies with no second, and then I'll entertain your motion, Councilmember Roberts.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion to postpone this to the March 23rd and give us 1 month, and direct the staff to work with the client and his representative to try to find a resolution to this. And I'd also like to ask the client's representative if we can get a copy of his business plan so we can further review like what the business actually is.
Certainly.
And then, and I'll entertain a second, but then I'm going to open it up for questions for any of the council members. Is there a second to that motion? And that was just postponing it until the second week in March. Is that what you said? This, yes, I mean, sir. Second meeting in March?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do I have a second for that motion? I will second that motion. And before we go to roll call vote, my suggestion, and I think you heard what the council members stated, this is my suggestion to Michael, is I think if you're going to sell yourself as like a high-end liquor, I don't want to use liquor store, a high-end store that sells liquor, then yeah, you should. I don't think you need to be up at 6 a.m. and closing at 2. That makes it feel like just a gas station liquor store again. And I would, if you're willing to put on the line that if you have calls for service and you can get shut down for that, I think that's a definite gamble. But you might be able to pull other council members on with that. Those would be my suggestions if that's something that you guys would be willing to do. Is there any other council member that wants to make any suggestion if we're going to move forward with pushing this off for 1 month? Okay, we'll do roll call vote.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes. So the direction is just to give staff ways to work around the timing and for it to come back as is. I'm not sure if that's going to change anything. So I think I don't want to waste again another month of their time.
Yeah, the motion is to give it 1 month to come up with alternate solutions at that location to make it more feasible to open that business in that location. So if you want to say no, you can say no.
So I think alternate solutions should include alternate options, other business models. I'm going to put that out there. So I'll say yes to move this along.
Okay.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
No.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
No, I don't want to waste their time, their money, or their attorney's fees or staff's time. And there's nothing that's going to change the fact that we're putting a liquor store across the street from a school or a store that sells liquor or any of the above. So it's going to have to be a whole different idea or a different location. And again, I just don't want to set the owner up to pay more money for legal expenses or for rent or anything else. And I don't want to waste our staff's time on something that I'm not going to budge on. So it's a no for me.
Councilmember Stockton.
I'm going to vote yes. I think it's kind of crazy that he even needs our permission to open up his business, but I would encourage the other council members that are reluctant to support it to just reach out to him, maybe go visit his other store. He's a nice guy. Just wants to open a business in Vacaville.
Mayor Rowland.
Yes. So now we have a 4-2.
Yes.
Was that a yes? I believe I did my math right this time.
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And hopefully, Michael, you could find a way to make it work. I would like to see you guys there. Next item is not 9A. We had pulled 9A, so we will go to 9B, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This item is an update on Senate Bill 1383 regarding methane gas reduction and organics recycling. It also includes an amendment to our contract with the consultant that is helping us prepare the program for that particular mandated program. Brian McLean from Public Works is making the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. I know it's late, so I'm going to move this along fairly quickly. Crystal, next slide, please. In 2016, Governor Brown signed into law Senate Bill 1383, establishing methane emissions reduction targets. Methane emissions result from the decomposition of organic waste in landfills and are a source of greenhouse gas emissions. Senate Bill 1383 directs the Department of Resources, Recycling and Recovery, otherwise known as CalRecycle, to adopt regulations and requirements to achieve statewide goals, including a goal to reduce organic waste disposal into landfills by 75% by the year 2025. The implementation deadline for SB 1383 is January 1st, 2022. Next slide. The specific areas of compliance which the city will be required to develop and manage are many and include organics collection programs, contamination monitoring, education and outreach, enforcement and penalties, edible food recovery programs, organic self-haul programs, ordinances and policy changes, procurement and recovered organic materials, and several other requirements. And for the first time, Senate Bill 1383 gives CalRecycle the power to financially penalize jurisdictions for noncompliance. Daily fines for jurisdictions for certain violations could cost up to $10,000 per day. Next slide. Because of the significant impacts to the city by Senate Bill 1383, it was clear that a substantial public outreach effort was necessary. As a result, staff has developed and deployed a multi-layered public outreach program utilizing a number of media formats, including utility bill inserts for water and sewer customers and notices and newsletters sent out with garbage service bills, ads placed in local magazines, ads placed in the Leisure Town Homeowners Association, newspaper ads, door hangers located in Leisure Town community areas, posters and informational boards at city facilities. Next slide. Additionally, in the area of electronic outreach, we are utilizing the VacavilleRecycling.com website. We have distributed emails to the Vacaville Chamber of Commerce as well as the Vacaville Improvement District to share with their members and contacts. We've initiated KUIC radio ads and slides on Channel 26, which began running last year in December. And on the social media front, we are using the City of Vacaville Recycling and Facebook pages. Finally, the central information portal for everything SB 1383 is on our VacavilleRecycling.com website, which is being updated frequently. Next slide. To achieve compliance with SB 1383, many operational changes will need to be made and implemented by our franchise hauler, Recology Vacaville Solano. And to implement those operational changes, the solid waste franchise agreement between the city and Recology will need to be updated. To assist staff in meeting the requirements of SB 1383 mandates as it relates to the city's solid waste franchise agreement and those municipal code changes, in June of last year, the city contracted with HF&H Consultants, LLC. The initial scope of the agreement with HF&H included several tasks related to the preparation of and updates to the draft solid waste franchise agreement number 3 and cost evaluation forms, analysis of the Recology proposal, and supporting city staff with 3 negotiating meetings. The total cost of this initial agreement, as approved by council in June of 2020, was $93,400, which the city will recover from Recology as per industry standard and city past practice by the end of this calendar year. Negotiations with Recology began in September of 2020 and are ongoing today. Next slide. As negotiations with Recology unfolded, 2 issues impacting the agreement with HF&H have become apparent. First, Recology has proposed alternative approaches to structuring the rates. These alternative rate structure approaches may benefit our ratepayers, and in staff's determination warrants additional analysis and negotiation support from HF&H. Second, SB 1383 requires the city to adopt municipal ordinances by January 1st, 2022 that require residents, businesses, food recovery organizations, and other regulated entities to comply with certain programmatic SB 1383 requirements. The link between Amendment number 3 and the programmatic changes required by SB 1383 are more closely tied to the required municipal code changes than previously anticipated due to the complexity of CalRecycle's interpretation and guidance to jurisdictions. That said, the city will greatly benefit from the parallel development of the draft Amendment 3 language alongside that of the municipal code changes the city will be required to implement by January of 2022. Consequently, staff requested a proposal from HF&H to provide the additional negotiation and analytical support, as well as assistance in drafting the required SB 1383 updates to the city's municipal code ordinances. HF&H has submitted an amended proposal with an additional cost of $82,020. Of the $82,020, $71,044 will be recovered from Recology by the city by the end of the calendar year, while the remaining $10,976 will be funded through the city's solid waste recycling account, which is a non-general fund account. Next slide. Some important milestones. Staff is anticipating the finalizing of Amendment number 3 to the solid waste franchise agreement by May of this year, followed by a July comprehensive city council informational presentation. Further, staff anticipates presenting Amendment number 3 and the required municipal code updates for city council's consideration in August of this year, which will allow for the required time and noticing requirements needed by Recology to gear up for implementation on January 1, 2022. Next slide. In terms of fiscal impact, the fiscal impact associated with the approval of Amendment number 1 to the HF&H agreement is $82,020, $71,044 coming from the general fund reserve, and $10,976 from the city's solid waste recycling non-general fund account. The strategic goal for this project is number 4, to maintain effective and efficient services. Next slide. And the recommendation is to adopt the subject resolution. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I see no hands up from our council, so we'll go to public comment. And right now I see none, but I'll wait a second. I do see Alicia Minions on the phone.
Alicia, I've unmuted your mic.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted a little more explanation on the statement in the presentation, the language that said that alternative rate structures may be beneficial to ratepayers. And can you give me some examples of how the alternative rate structure could be beneficial to a particular ratepayer? And I mean, what does that mean? Because I think, don't we all residential pays the same rate. So are you talking about between different types of customers, like a commercial customer versus a residential customer? And
Alicia,
I think an example would just be really helpful.
That's a great question. On the line is Rob Hilton and Tracy Swanborn with HF&H Consultants. Crystal, can you open up their mic?
Rob, you're on.
Rob and Tracy's mics are open.
Good evening, Council. Happy to respond to the question from the public. The specific issue here relates to the recycling and organics services, and particularly the recycling and organics services provided to businesses and multifamily customers. So while the member of the public that asked the question was correct, residential customers generally receive the same recycling and organic service levels. Everybody gets a cart, everybody has access to basically the same thing. Businesses and multifamilies have more variety in their service need, from small carts like you have at your home to very large bins that get collected several times a week. And so the particular issue we're looking at in this rate restructuring is making sure that the users of that high volume, high frequency service are paying for it, and that small businesses and households, for example, are not subsidizing that service inadvertently. And that was a step that the council took in adopting the rates for the commercial organics program about a year ago. We're relooking at that and looking particularly at the recycling issue there going forward. So that's a bit of what that issue is about.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close public comment. I'm going to bring it back to council for motion.
This is Michael Silva, motion to approve.
Thank you.
As stated.
Do we have a second?
Stockton.
Got a second? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Mayor Rowland?
Aye. We will move to item 9C, Mr. City Manager.
Vice Mayor, members of the City Council, this is just real quickly bringing back to the council an updated version of the City Council strategic plan that we presented to you at a special meeting on February 2nd to go through the goals, initiatives, and strategies. Next slide, please. So just real quickly, at that particular meeting, we asked the council to help us prioritize the different initiatives. This is the order in which the ranking came out. And so as you can see here, Initiative 2A regarding articulating the current economic development program, ranked number 1 just by a point. The second closest one was ensuring fiscal sustainability for Initiative 4A, and the rest follow in order. Next slide, please. So at the same time, we also asked the council to consider adding a 5th goal, which is promoting community engagement and increasing equity and inclusion. By unanimous support, the council included this, and so we will incorporate this goal and those strategies below as part of the strategic plan going forward. Next slide. Additionally, we also asked the council, particularly the new council members that were not involved in the 2020 effort, if they had other ideas or thoughts that they would like to include in the strategic plan. The 4 items you see here were mentioned, and so we've identified those, and we have evaluated them and are recommending the applicable strategy and go into the appropriate initiative that you see to the right of that. So development of additional parks, we believe fits nicely with Initiative 2B. Neighborhood equity of parks and services fits right in with Initiative 2B as well as Goal 5. Climate, sustainability, and green energy, also Initiative 2B, which all deals with managing the impacts of growth going forward. And then last, disaster and emergency preparedness, which fits nicely under Initiative 1B. Next slide, please. So that concludes the items for the strategic plan. We believe that the next step on this will be to go ahead and finalize the totals for the strategies and the ranking of those strategies. So because this is a living, breathing document, we will be bringing this back to the council periodically. The next time I expect to bring it back to you is in March, where I will have the ranked strategies. And then we will hopefully be able to identify for you the short-term, mid-term, and long-term objectives of those priorities. So moving on from that, the other item that I wanted to bring to you tonight related to the implementation of the strategic plan is to present the council with a schedule of some ideas that we have to help the council understand better some of the topics that we will need to become more familiar with as we go forward with the implementation of the council strategic plan and the implementation strategies. And so what I'm recommending that we do is utilize the first Tuesdays or the fifth Tuesdays of certain months to present special study session topics for council's use to get familiar with some of the big important topics that will be imperative as we go forward. So as you can see there, the first one that I'm recommending is that on March 2nd, we come back and we talk about OPEB and pension. That's going to be necessary. And as you may recall, the council discussed last year at the right around elections time that we would bring back the OPEB advisory report and talk about that a little bit more. So we see this as an opportunity to do just that. April 6th, that's when we really start getting into budget discussions. And so we want to make sure that the council, especially our new members, have a much better, deeper understanding of Budget 101. We'll also, be introducing the topic of Measure M at that time as well. Next, we're recommending Measure M discussion on May 4th. And you can see the list of the other items that we're recommending: land development, economic development, and then finally a shared goal setting meeting with the council and its two commissions that they appoint and work with, the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission. So this is really just for information purposes and to get council feedback if there's any issues with the items that I'm suggesting we present to the council or timing. I'll be happy to hear that. If there is no comments, we will make sure to initiate the noticing process for when it's time for those particular special study sessions. So with that, what we're really looking for you tonight is just to adopt the document that we've included as attachment 1. And then if there's any feedback on the schedule that you see in front of you now, we'll take that as well. So that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I do have Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Quick comment and no questions, but my comment, Aaron, is that in the attached document, the actual strategic plan doc, I'd like you to sort of call out in some way, shape, or form the priority order that council ranked and maybe discuss that process. It's clear in the agenda item, but it's not clear in the shiny strategic plan document. So however you want to annotate that and kind of discuss how we came up with those priorities and kind of what that means, I'd really appreciate you calling that out specifically. And then my second comment to you and to all of staff, I just really appreciated the process. I think it was very well thought out. I know it was a little bit confusing for us, but I am totally looking forward to the next steps in the calendar. And I just really appreciate all the efforts from you staff, from Ray Weaver, and just leading us through this pretty tremendous process. So thank you to you and staff.
Thank you.
We'll go to public comment. I don't see anyone, but I'll wait for a second. We do have one person's hand just popped up, 2 people. Go ahead.
Bradley Larson, I'll open your mic.
Yeah, I would just like to take a minute to extend a thank you to the city manager just for recognizing the importance of engaging in public dialogue and trust between the city and the community, and adding in goal number 5, specifically the part about the multilingual component and the equity among parks and promoting housing for all individuals. I'd just like to say I really appreciate that because I know that those were comments made at the Parks and Recreation Committee recently. And I just wanted to say thank you for actually listening to the community. And Ron, I feel like you could take a page out of the city manager's book here, and maybe don't mute people when they're trying to make points regarding their community and trying to reach out and connect with the city council and with the mayor. So yeah, I would just like to say thank you for that. Additionally, I just have an idea regarding public housing. I know looking at big cities like Houston, we could probably take a lot of inspiration from them and what they have been doing. Specifically, I'm going to say it again, defunding the police departments in order to make sure that we have community funding. Things like we're trying to achieve right here in this part of the meeting. This is what I've been waiting all night for. And so I, again, just want to really say I appreciate the city manager for this one. But yeah, Ron, I really need you to pay attention to this, dude. Like, you're saying that we need dialogue and transparency, but you're like consistently muting people who are trying to get involved in their community and who are trying to make a change, who are trying to express to you that changes need to happen, and you just mute them and you don't listen to their points. And it's not very cool, dude. It's not very cool. Yeah, other than that, I just want to say thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Next caller.
Alicia Minion, I'll open your mic.
Hi, I just wanted to thank the city manager for this item. I noticed a couple things that I haven't noticed before. Number one, on the staff reports under each item, the city manager and his staff are indicating what strategic goal that particular item is related to. And I think that's important because in the past, you see items on agendas and decisions being made, but it never circled back to the strategic plan. And I think to have a successful strategic plan to really meet those objectives and goals, it's important that every decision circles back to the strategic plan. And so I really appreciated that. And I also appreciate this calendar, Erin, that you've presented where you show a timeline of the different components of the budget that will be addressed. And I appreciate that you're dedicating those certain components that make up the budget and really dedicating time for those specific components like OPEB and PARS or just Measure M, just dedicating a meeting just to discuss Measure M. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to close public comment and I'll bring it back to the council. Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. So, just real quick, kind of echoing Councilmember Sullivan's comments and sorry, it's getting late for me, but thanks for, putting this all together and organizing all that. One of the things that, I just kind of, through that process, I know we don't want to come in and, quote unquote, shake a lot of things up and whatnot. But there is some, key community needs that have kind of been echoed through over and over. And for instance, just one of them again, and we're listing as one of our priorities as far as our parks, as far as developing those or whether it be housing. I mean, I can pick every single one of these priorities. So I think one of the things there where I kind of feel that I'd like to see happen with these is a little more clarification on not just what we're implementing, but also how we're actually implementing it. And I'll state that a different way. I would just appreciate that if there is some type of communication method between staff and whether we be respective commissioners and including us as council members, just to get these consistent, regular updates on not just that there is a plan, but there's the plan to actually implement that and how we can support those efforts. Because again, I'm excited to serve with this council, and I know we definitely want to make sure that we can implement some positive changes throughout our community. So and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain motion.
The Silva motion.
Sullivan, I'll second.
I will roll call vote it.
Member Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Mayor Rowlett.
Aye. We'll move to item 9D, Mr. City Manager. Unless you want me to just jump.
Yeah, we'll just send it over to Chief Conception.
Chief, are you there?
I am, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. I'm going to try to be quick. Crystal, next slide, please. I'm going to give you the latest data, and per your request from the last council meeting, it's the differences also to the right there from the last time I gave you an update. So in California, we're up to about 3.41 million cases. That's an increase of a little over 95,000 from 2 weeks ago. Up to 49,563 deaths. That's an additional about 5,000 deaths since 2 weeks ago. Good news though, on the 14-day positivity, it's at 3.3%. That's 2.3% lower than just 2 weeks ago. And the rate of the daily cases are really starting to slow down in California. Solano County is tracking the same also. With the numbers trending in the right direction. 29,859 cases, additional 865 in the last 14 days. Here's a significant data, 382 active cases, down 517. So from 2 weeks ago, we have less than half of the active cases that we had 2 weeks ago. 52 currently hospitalized. And it's a decrease of 37 from 2 weeks ago. There are additional 27 deaths from 2 weeks ago at a total of 161. Again, that 7-day positivity, according to the state, is at 4.4%. That is a decrease of almost 5%. So that is really good news. City of Vacaville, 7,866 cases with growth of 188 cases. Next slide, please. In Solano County, we still are in the purple tier, but the numbers to get us to the red tier, we're getting really close. So if you look at the three different criteria that they grade us on, it's the daily new cases. We have to be less than 7 per 100,000. As of today, according to the state, we're at 12.3 cases per 100,000. So actually, this is the only criteria where we're still in the purple tier. If you look at the positivity rate, we're already below, even below the lowest. We would be in the orange tier there at 4.4%. And then the health equity, health equity is just making sure that the most disadvantaged neighborhoods do not significantly lag behind the overall county test positivity rate. And so even with health equity, we're at 5.4%, and we need to be in red. We need to be between 5.3 and 8%. So we're hoping that we'll get down on the and actually in the last couple of days, we're getting really close as far as the daily new cases. So hopefully that'll keep trending in the right direction, and we can get to the red tier here pretty quickly in Solano County. Happy to report, and this is tentative right now, but next Monday, Solano County Public Health is planning on doing a vaccination clinic, and it's going to be at Markham Elementary School. The city is going to help. They've asked for our help to have some of our paramedics there assisting with the vaccination process. And the reason that it's tentative right now is because it's dependent on, they've had some weather back east, and it's really dependent on making sure that the amount of vaccine that they have ordered makes it here and gets shipped properly and is received in time for that March 1st clinic. And then, as I always do, I will turn it over to our housing director, Emily Cantu, to give you an update on the wintering warming shelter.
Yep, real quick. Thank you, Chief Conception. This is Emily Cantu, the Housing and Services Director. Just real quick update, the winter sheltering program based on council approval at the last meeting. That program is scheduled to run through March. We've got hours and again, some data points that we've been sharing at each of the council meetings. The case managers there, the staff of the sheltering program continue to work on an individual basis to determine individual needs and help participants move toward housing, being housed. They're providing, many other services and providing food and toiletries, clothes, and other services. And also since the last council meeting, there was a meeting held to discuss a permanent location as directed by City Council. So we are working on that diligently. And next slide. Also, as usual, just a little info for anyone who wants to donate to the program. The information is on the screen of what's accepted at the thrift store on Peabody Road and the items that you can drop off at the Opportunity House on Bennett Hill Court. And that's all I have.
Thank you. I have 3 hands up. We'll start with Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. Just real quick, is there a plan to communicate with businesses and any changes once we go to red tier? And there's a question after that.
As far as communicating with the businesses, we will, as soon as we get into red tier, we will absolutely send blast things out via social media and that once we get there.
And I'm sorry, I should have been more specific as well. Appreciate that. And I guess just some feedback, I guess, and that's maybe what I'm trying to do here is to relay that a lot of folks kind of, because there's been so much, different, guidances and, change and recommendations that we just kind of clarify. I think it would be helpful if we clarify what's under the guidelines and not.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what is allowed under the red tier versus the purple tier is pretty clear, and we will remind the businesses of that once we get there.
Thank you, sir. And then the last question is, I know a lot of families are itching to get their kids back into organized sports. And is that something that we're prepared to get going once we get the green light?
Yes, absolutely. Once the whatever activities we are in, we are constantly monitoring what is allowed under the state mandates or orders. And once those activities are allowed, we will allow them. The things that are coming up is that we discuss at our weekly meetings is when are the non-contact sports going to be allowed? I believe that's in the red tier. And then as far as when other more contact-like sports will be allowed, and we're constantly monitoring that.
Thank you, Chief.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Questions for the Chief. Chief, I apologize if you answered this. I'm getting tired. But there's been a series of emails over the last week or two from local seniors asking for a senior vaccine site, ideally in Leisureton or somewhere near Leisureton. I know you mentioned a vaccine site in Markham. Is there anything on the horizon in terms of accessible, easy to access vaccine location for seniors in Vacaville, particularly maybe in Leisureton?
Unfortunately, Vice Mayor Sullivan, we tried as best as we can with public health to try to get them to move locations to something that is more, because I'm absolutely aware of those requests from the seniors, and that's who's getting the vaccine right now. But the county is insisting on that location.
In that particular case, I'm not sure, I mean, if there's really even a need there, but maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I'm wondering maybe if we can engage with City Coach to direct services to help folks get to that site. I mean, even though Markham is a short drive in a car, many seniors are immobile, can't drive, need paratrans. So I do wonder if maybe we can look into anything we can do to assist folks who need the vaccine to get to a vaccine site that maybe couldn't otherwise do so.
I can certainly work with the city manager and the public works director on that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Roberts.
Thanks, sir. Well, I did have two questions, but Nolan touched on the first one on transportation to vaccine sites for elderly, because I have received a few phone calls about people that are eligible for vaccines, but have no way to get to them. So I'll just wait for feedback from Nolan's question. Second part is I just want to thank you, Chief, for making those additions to the slides, because after only seeing the Vacaville specific numbers for like essentially every 2 weeks, it gives me and hopefully the community a better understanding of what's going on in the community. Thank you.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to, I had a couple questions regarding the COVID-19 shots for seniors. Is there a way that we could utilize that senior help hotline to, are they, and they may already be doing this, to help kind of folks without computers or seniors that may have questions, or anybody for that matter that may have questions about some of these sites? Are those being utilized? Or is that help hotline have that information available for citizens if they have it? And I have a couple other questions, but I'll wait until that one gets answered.
Carrie, are you available? Is that something that your staff, as they call into the senior helpline, is that something they have information on? If not, we can definitely provide it for them.
Yes, this is Director Walker, Director of Parks and Recreation. The hotline is still active, and we still are assisting seniors. In terms of specifics related to vaccine opportunities for seniors, the information that we have is somewhat limited. So any information that's out there that can be passed along, we'd be happy to provide that to our seniors.
Okay, great. Yeah, that would be fantastic. I just think it would be something that might be utilized. The other question I had is maybe for the city attorney. Are there currently any cease and desist orders on file with the city, and are any that were issued before still active?
As far as any cease and desist orders from other agencies, is that what you're asking, or have we issued any? The city's issued one cease and desist order that was specific to the orders that were in place at the time that the cease and desist order was issued. But to the extent those orders are no longer in place, that cease and desist order has expired. The city has issued no other cease and desist orders, and I'm not aware of any that the county has issued that would be on file with the city.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question is for staff. I mean, we have, I think, our community has had some tremendous patience with the COVID-19 restrictions. We've got a lot of kids that have been prevented from playing the sports, the ball fields, and some of the other activities with our local parks where they've got, barricades and stuff preventing them. I just really want to stress to staff that the second that those facilities are able to be opened up safely for the enjoyment of our citizens, I just want to make sure that we're, handling that as soon as possible, like immediately, just because I know people are eager to get out when they can do so safely. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stockton. We actually discussed that at our Monday briefing, and that very item at our Monday briefing. So as I mentioned before, we are monitoring the situation very closely, and as soon as we are allowed to do that, we will remove those barricades.
Okay, we're going to open it up to public comment. I see 2 hands up.
Alicia Minion, I'll open your mic.
I don't know if she carried over
Sorry,
from the
that
last
was
one.
an error. Yeah, that carried over from the last comment.
And I thought it did, but I didn't want to exclude you. So we'll go to Bradley.
Bradley, I've opened your mic.
How's it going again, guys? So I would just like to ask staff as well as council, what precautions are being made in terms of COVID-19 for the homeless citizens, the people without houses who live and reside inside of Vacaville? And I was just curious if there was any city-run program. I noticed that there was you talked about the Opportunity House briefly and what they're doing for the houseless community, but I was just wondering if there was actually a city-run program, and if not, if there is anything that we can do to implement a something in the future that can take care of these individuals and find them shelter, not only during the pandemic, but during the cold winter months that are extremely harsh if you do not have a residence. Yeah. Oh, with that being said, if the city is not doing anything to help the homeless, then I have to call into question why the police force is continually blocking houseless efforts that people are trying to go out there and help these people. They're showing up in riot gear to these situations where people are just trying to feed people who need help and to give clothes to people who need help. So if the city is not doing anything themselves to help these people, and the police department is actively blocking community efforts to help these people, how are we going to get these people help? Because the fact of the matter is they're suffering out there, and a lot of times they're dying or getting caught up in situations that they don't deserve to be caught up in, because a lot of times it's just people who are trying to get their lives back together. And I feel we should be giving them that opportunity if we have the chance. And referencing my previous comments, we can see that that's exactly what Houston did in the example that I brought up. They converted a hotel into shelters for houseless individuals to use during the pandemic and to help get them back on their feet and to basically prevent them from dying. And we've already seen a lot of people in this county die, preventable deaths from this disease. I think we should be doing everything we can to keep those numbers as close to zero as possible, realistically. Other than that, just thank you guys for your time. I appreciate you. I know it's been a long night.
Hey, Crystal, can you go back 2 slides, please, so that Bradley can see the update that Housing Director Cantu gave about our wintering shelter that the council approved through the end of March?
And before we move forward, I'm going to close public comment and you can answer his question now. Or just show him the slide, I guess.
Yeah, that's all I was going to do.
Sorry, I'm pulling it up.
Okay.
Perfect.
So just to answer the question from, I think it was Bradley, here's the update that Emily Cantu gave, and this is what we've been doing. The council has approved this winter sheltering program through the end of March. Actually was extended, I believe, a couple of council meetings ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We're going to move to item 10, report to City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things. Just an update on the Place of Peace request. I'm still working with that group on language, but at the same time, we also have reached out to the school district, who is going to be working with their board this past week. So I hope to follow up with them this week and get an update so that we can bring that back to council soon. A couple of other items. Earlier tonight, there was some requests for some updates. So I'll address those real quickly given the hour. So the first one with regards to the canine incident. So as I shared with the council at the last meeting, there's a lot going on right now with that. And once again, while I don't have any specific details that I can release at this particular time, I do assure you that there's been plenty of activity to make sure that our canine partner is being cared for and that the incident is being investigated thoroughly. Just as a reminder, there are 3 separate reviews and investigations that are happening concurrently, and each one of those is being conducted by an independent third party to ensure an objective process. The first one is being done to evaluate the dog for physical and mental effects from the incident. I'm told that that particular investigation is nearing completion. The second expert is conducting an investigation of the personnel matter with regards to the officer's actions. That process is continuing to move forward. The third expert is reviewing the police department's canine programs and all associated operations, training and police policies and procedures, and that one is still ongoing. So I wish I could give you a definitive date when all those are going to be completed, but I do know that we are moving aggressively with that, all three of those, and working with our staff and the police department and the attorney's office to make sure that we can get that back to the council and the public just as soon as we can. Once the reviews and investigations are complete, all that information that can be legally shared will be released to the public. The second item was a question or a comment about the behavioral and crime statistics. And so this is something that I was made of last week about various behavioral and crime statistics comparing 2019 data versus 2020. That information was shared with the Vacaville Ministerial Association in late January or early February. And at the time, I was also made aware that that information is not accurate and needed to be retracted. With that in mind, earlier today, our acting police chief Schmussler sent an email to the Ministerial Association letting them know that the information shared with them is incorrect. And we are working right now diligently to determine how this error occurred. And once we have the correct data and have confidence in its accuracy, it will be shared. So with that, that concludes my updates, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Reports of City Council. I see Vice Mayor Sullivan wants to say something.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it. It's been a long night, guys, so I'll try to be fairly quick. City Manager, thank you for answering those two questions. I appreciate it. And I would appreciate an update on the data issue when you finally figure out what's going on. So my first report out is on the homeless roundtable that met last week. I just wanted to give the council a quick update. It was a really, really good meeting. We actually were introduced to Sergeant Katie Cardona, who heads up the new crew unit. So she replaces Sergeant Aaron Dahl. It's a rotational shift, and they're both spectacular choices for this program. And their team does a lot of good stuff in Vacaville. So just want to let you guys know Katie Cardona is the new crew head. We had a really robust and kind of intense discussion on the warming center. And so a lot of the stats that were shared with you guys tonight in the COVID update were also shared with the whole homeless roundtable, which was fantastic. I did want to report an interesting data fact back. And I think this might have been shared with council before, but over 70% of the 220 or 230 residents that have used services there are actually Vacaville residents. So there was some notion that if you build it, they will come or will attract people from outside. But again, 70% have been confirmed to be city residents. That doesn't mean others couldn't be, but that's 7 out of 10 at least we know are from Vacaville and really would have nowhere else to go. And then lastly, a really cool development that sort of came up from a local pastor, which is pretty interesting, is they're developing a downtown streets-like program. So the Opportunity House running the warming center would actually like to put some of the folks there to work, essentially. And so they're actually fundraising right now for gift cards and tools and shirts. And they're hoping to have 10 to maybe 15 of their participants in the warming center actually perform community beautification projects, picking up trash, helping clean up downtown, clean up parks, and do some other things. So a huge shout out to a couple local area churches. Raleigh Goggin did an amazing job. Danny Wells is on top of it, and then Colleen Broom at the O House. So hopefully we'll have a downtown streets like pilot program stood up here very quickly. And if anyone wants to donate or raise funds or contribute to that program, you can contact Colleen Broom or Raleigh Goggin. Lastly, I just wanted to make a closing statement, and I know there's only about 20 attendees left on the call, and I know everyone's tired, but I feel like it's important to get out there. I've used my public comment several times, my Facebook page, the local newspaper, to speak out on a variety of issues that I felt like I needed to speak out on as a council member. I'm going to continue to do that because I feel like that's why I was elected. Over the last 2 weeks, I've received several calls and emails from people who work downtown asking for help. And I just want to publicly state and put the record out there that what happened this past Sunday evening downtown was an attack. It was an attack on local businesses, on local workers trying to make an honest living to support their families. As a past hospitality worker myself, Saturday and Sunday nights, that's how I paid my bills. That's how I paid my rent. Those were big money nights. These workers that work in these downtown businesses, they come from all sorts of backgrounds. all sorts of races, they are united in working long hours, hard and laborious duties, being on the front line during a pandemic nonetheless, and oftentimes have to survive on their tips. So I would like to publicly implore to all Vacaville residents, especially those working for a better future here in Vacaville, to speak out. Actions that clearly target innocent businesses and their workers who are barely making it by during COVID in Vacaville is not okay. It's not acceptable. As a city, we do have work to do. There's significant need for change. We have some major equity issues, diversity issues, and there's certainly voices that need to be heard. But Sunday night's action was chaos, it was vulgarity, it was bullying, it was unacceptable, and it can't be tolerated. So I hope the council will join me in condemning these actions, and I hope other people in Vacaville will also speak up, because we can't be targeting people on the edge here in town. Thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
I just have a couple of things to say. It was earlier in the meeting when we talked about the downtown business district. I was happy to spend some time with both Brooke Fox and Aisha this past week. And after that, I visited some new businesses downtown. So if you haven't been downtown recently, check it out. So I was good to see the community support for our downtown. And the biggest thing we need to do is visit downtown and frequent them. And that goes along with what, Vice Mayor Sullivan was just saying. We need downtown to be a safe place to be for everyone. So the other thing, I was able to attend the Saturday event for recognizing Black History Month, and that was a wonderful event. Great speakers and very uplifting, and I was happy that there were a variety of Vacaville residents there. I have been continuing my learning curve, and I met with Public Works, and I have a couple other meetings scheduled in the coming weeks with other departments. And I am happy that the one item that was pulled about the banner program is something that we will continue to look at. So we will look at that another time. I'm glad we had a lot of community input on that when they saw that on the agenda. So that's what I had to share today.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I concur with Ms. Wiley's comments that she just made, and I also want to join the Vice Mayor in condemning the behavior of the individuals that were out there on Sunday evening. It's disappointing that happened, but I don't want that to overshadow the outstanding event that happened on last Saturday, the 20th, to celebrate some really amazing people that have contributed to Vacaville over time and still are. So I thought that was a wonderful event. I was really proud of the community really being the driving force in that. And I also want to thank our police officers. Our police officers have been dealing with civil unrest for the past 7 or 8 months. Many of them aren't getting days off. Many of them are picking up extra shifts. They're giving this community everything that they've got. And the fact that our council today unanimously came out to support them and their efforts means a lot, I think, to all of us. And so I just want to tell them thank you for what you're doing, for keeping us safe, for protecting our community, and protecting people who are peacefully protesting doing so. So thank you for that. Thank you for our firefighters that came out and assisted with the cleanup. I know that's not in your job description, but your dedication to our community has never wavered. I also wanted to touch base and give a shout out to Public Works. They've assisted with an issue that's happening in District 1 with some parking issues and community issues revolving around some of the walking trails over in the Hillcrest area. And I know we have a brand new Public Works director, and I just really wanted to thank you and your staff for being so great to work with and really taking the initiative to listen to the people and make and affect some positive change to help improve their quality of life. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you. And I see no other hands from the council members. So I'm going to wrap up and give a comment for my report. I do agree with one thing that Vice Mayor Sullivan said, and we should be condemning these folks. I agree that it was horrible this Sunday, but I have thought that every Sunday out there, the things they say over the loudspeaker, the messing with the people that are trying to have dinner downtown, the beating on the walls, the graffiti with the chalk, whether it's chalk or not, there's a lot of hate. And people call up here and tell us, you guys hate and you guys are racist. And but they're the ones throwing out color of skin, and they're the ones throwing out hateful things. And to see all the hate downtown, and to see wanting to kill, they use the word pig for police, and they want to kill them and fry them, and they've got their hands, blood streaming from their hands, and it's disgusting. And tonight what we did, and I'm going to let people in on it, is we voted unanimously. We've tried to go the route of trying to work with these folks, because we understand this city always has room for improvement, and we want to make improvements. But the things that they've been doing down there, terrorizing our city, being bullies, when people call in and say, you guys are all bullies, the cops are bullies. No, the people down there protesting are bullies, and they're bullying our people, they're bullying our businesses. And tonight, I just want to thank this whole council, because they all came together and said, it stops. Tonight, we draw the line. This Sunday, if there's a protest out there, we are going to hold them accountable for anything that they do if they break the law. And I know there's a lot of citizens that have called me, wrote emails to all the council members saying, you're just letting these people get away with anything. Well, we won't let them get away with anything anymore. If you're breaking the law, you're going to be punished. And we're going to uphold all the laws, all the city laws and the state laws. And lastly, I don't know the word I want to say. It's kind of dangerous to say that the housing center, the warming center, has 70% Vacaville folks, and because I have heard those numbers, but I've heard other numbers, and just like the numbers that just came out, I don't know what numbers are right. I've had people that work for the city that tell me those numbers are wrong, and even if the numbers are right, that means 3 out of the 10 are coming from out of town coming in. It's disgusting to go over by the George E. Duke Center now. We have people just lounging around, laying around, basically sleeping, waiting for that homeless shelter to come about. Now, I don't know what the answer is. I don't think anyone does. But continuing, all these other cities continue to pile money into the homelessness. And I don't know what the answer is, but I am nervous that we're creating even a bigger problem. When you build it, they do come, and I truly believe in that. I've seen it in other cities. The more money they dump into it, the bigger homeless problem they have. And our parks are impacted now. Our businesses are calling me saying, hey, the homeless are spilling over when they come out of those warming centers. I know that we have one more month, but I don't want to see it extended. I want to see the kids back in there. We got to find, again, I said it before, a brick and mortar place to make sure that we have rules and regulations and help these folks, give them resources for the ones that want help. And I just caution anyone that's saying, oh, it's fantastic and we have all these great numbers of people that are here, and I hear other numbers that aren't true. So I don't know which numbers are true. I just don't want to sell this illusion that it's a fantastic deal. I don't think it's a fantastic deal. It looks horrible over there. They're just spilling out into that area, and that area is going to be a school. With that, I'm going to shut down city council reports. We do have closed session tonight. and we will not be reporting anything out. So if there's no reports for the item 12A, I don't see any hands up from the public. I'll close public comment and I'll move to 13. We will adjourn. Good night, Vacaville.